I'm Kerry Campbell.
And I'm Gail Farrell Parker.
On the show with us today, go ahead, Jim.
And I am Jim Leslie. Glad to be with both of you here.
Fantastic. Colonel Jim Leslie, Gail Farrell Parker. We're also happy to have with us today Bob Fitrakis from Ohio, the Green Party's Bob Fitrakis. Bob of the Green Party is a political science professor at Columbus State Community College, where he won the Distinguished Teaching Award in 1981. Professor Fitrakis has taught political theory at the University of Michigan, taught political science at Wayne University and Oakland Community College. Professor Fitrakis of the Green Party has also authored 12 books and several articles, and is a frequent speaker on political, labor, and social policy issues at the national academic and political conferences. He is currently co-chair of the Ohio Green Party and the Franklin County Green Party. He ran as the Green Party candidate for the 3rd Congressional District in 2012 and as the Green Party's endorsed candidate for Lieutenant Governor in the 2014 elections. Bob, welcome to the show.
Glad to be on.
Tell us a bit about the extraordinary and amazing success of the Green Party of Ohio in the just past 2014 elections, where the Green Party astoundingly shocked the world and won ballot status.
Well, we won nearly 100,000 votes, which is the most votes that a third party has gotten in Ohio under its own label since the 1930s. So, and by the time that they're all counted, we'll have over 100,000 votes. That's 3.3% of all the votes cast. And in major counties, where Columbus is, Franklin County, we receive 4.5% of the vote.
That's it.
And again, we now have permanent status, at least for the next 4 years. We're the only third party on the ballot in Ohio.
Professor Fitrakis, you walk your talk. You just ran for public office, I believe, Lieutenant Governor in Ohio, as did I ran for office in Virginia for Congress. The American voter has said in exit polls that they are disgusted with the two legacy parties. How do we get the American voter to vote green?
Well, I think if we remained principled, that if we point out that both of these parties are pro-war parties, they're both the party of the 1%, that they're both the parties of fossil fuel, and that no real change is going to come unless it comes from the bottom up, and the only way it's really going to come, progressive change, is by voting green. So I think the more we articulate our message, the more of us that run for office, the better we'll do.
Bob, what originally brought you to the Green Party? What was the impetus for you, and when was that?
Well, I had a long activity with third parties that goes back to the 1970s when I supported the Human Rights Party in Michigan. But in the 1990s, I was actually a Democrat. In 1992, I ran for Congress as the endorsed Democrat against John Kasich, who's now the governor of Ohio. I also did a lot of political strategy, managed campaigns. But increasingly, with the rise of Bill Clinton and the Democratic leadership council, the pro-corporate Democrats, a lot of the issues, like on minimum wage, economic issues, environmental issues, were no longer being taken on by the Ohio Party. So in the year 2000, when Ralph Nader ran for president, I left to support Nader. And then I solidified my activity on behalf of the Green Party over the Iraq War, when the major leaders in that party, John Kerry and Hillary Clinton, who were both going to run for president in 2004, were willing to speak out a little against the war, but when the time came, they both voted in favor of an illegal war. And again, I consider what was done against the people of Iraq a war crime. And I say this with somebody who's a J.D. and a Ph.D. who's written on it repeatedly. They violated the principles of Nuremberg. They attacked a country that wasn't a threat to us. And I believe that that's why I permanently left the Democratic Party, because I didn't believe we needed two pro-war imperialist parties.
Bob Fitrakis, you are one of the nation's most well-known and most staunch election protection advocates. Since March of 1994, you served as the International Observer for National Elections in El Salvador. You co-wrote and edited the El Salvador Election Report for the United Nations. Let's bring this to the United States, Bob. How can we make our elections in the United States more reliable? Can we count on what the election results we're told? Can we believe them?
Well, no, here's the problem, and I was the head of the International Observers Delegation, and I did co-write and edit the report that went to the United Nations. If I went into El Salvador, as I did in 1994, and in there were private, for-profit, partisan companies secretly essentially writing the software with no transparency, my report would have simply said presumption of fraud. They are allowing for-profit private companies to secretly program their computers. I agree with Jimmy Carter, the former president, who said the American democracy is now dysfunctional. You cannot have a system that's non-transparent. A lot of these companies, and I've written about this in detail, a lot of them have ties directly to the military-industrial complex, to the CIA. The whole movement of the software with the Eurosevich brothers is tied to the CIA stealing elections in the third world. We cannot have democracy in the United States until our elections are transparent.
Bob Fitrakis on Green TV. Bob Fitrakis is the independent Green Party leader from Ohio, ran in 2014 as lieutenant governor candidate, along with Anita Rijos as the governor candidate, and the Green Party, like Green parties all across the United States, won ballot status. Of course, the Green Party is one of only 4 national parties, truly national parties in the United States, and the Green Party is the only of the 4 national parties in the United States that does not accept corporate donations. Bob Fitrakis on the phone with us now. Bob, I want to talk just a little bit more about the amazing book that you wrote. I believe the title was How the GOP Stole the 2004 Election and Rigged 2008. Now, Bob, as a conservative Green, can I believe that?
Well, I think it's all there. I mean, if you look at a lot of the information, all the stuff that we write, and I would stress that I was an award-winning investigative journalism, and I mean mainstream investigative, the Society of Professional Journalists. I spent 5 years in Ohio as an investigative reporter, winning many awards, and the key to this is public record. What they did in Ohio in 2004, which is how they won the election here, is essentially they brought in private companies and outsourced the vote count to a company called Smart Tech in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which was run by a born-again, far-right evangelical minister who was also running the server farm for the White House, as well as the Swift voters, for truth that were attacking Kerry. So, I mean, they didn't really hide what they were doing here, and they signed the contract a year and a half. And in fact, in my lawsuit, when we found the IT guy, the private IT guy, Michael Connell, and deposed him on the day of the 1 day before the 2008 election, he ended up dead in a small plane crash a month and a half later. So a lot of this stuff is in the public record. What they're relying on is a belief that Americans will refuse to acknowledge anyone tampering with their system. But I believe what they used to do covertly in the third world, particularly those related to the Bush family and the former CIA director, they have brought those tactics home, and all we can do is make our elections transparent. If you allow private companies to secretly program your polling books, your computers, your e-voting machines, you're begging for someone to steal the election. And I would point out that some of the people that have backed my findings are Forbes magazine, Daily Investment News, most of the Wall Street journalists, because they make money and they might lose some if we become an obvious banana republic, have all confirmed that what I have said and my partner Harvey Wasserman has said is all in the public record.
You're watching Green TV, Independent Green Party Green TV. I am Kerry Campbell here with Gail Farrell-Parker and the Independent Green Party's Colonel Jim Leslie. Gail, I believe the next question for the Green Party's Bob Fitrakis goes to you.
Yes, Bob, you authored a 50-point consent decree to ensure election integrity in Ohio and submitted it to the then Secretary of State. Have any of those proposals been adopted by the state of Ohio?
There's been a few of them. For example, the random purges in Ohio. People in a run-up to the 2004 election, they actually purged 24.96% of every voter in Cleveland that voted, and they were voting 81% Democrat in that city. So now at least you have to notify somebody when you're purging them. But most of those were not adopted, and part of the problem is, what I've noticed is that when the Republicans have power, Secretary of State, they do everything possible to make sure their party wins. J. Kenneth Blackwell returned 10,000 voter registrations because they weren't on the right paperweight. They moved the precincts around. When the Democrats have power, and I sued as a Green, I sued as a civil rights attorney. Instead of negotiating with me, the Democratic Secretary of State, instead of negotiating a settlement, simply did nothing to ensure future elections would be safe in Ohio. But the one thing she did follow up on, of course, is she did do the Everest study, Jennifer Bruner, and what she pointed out is that computers are so vulnerable in Ohio that somebody with a handheld device and wireless could alter the election results statewide in Ohio.
Bob Fitrakis, Ohio Green Party and the 2014 Green Party candidate for Lieutenant Governor on Independent Green Party, Green TV today. Bob, let's focus on positive Green New Deal solutions in the 2015 election cycle. Are you ready to start talking about who are some of the candidates that you hope to have run in the 2015 cycle in Ohio? What kinds of elections will come up in 2015 for the Green Party in Ohio, Bob?
Well, they're primarily municipal elections and school board elections. We're already recruiting people for green curriculums. And in the municipal election, there's going to be a big push. We've already been involved with this for the Community Bill of Rights. These Bill of Rights that we're passing as charter amendments, we've just passed our 6th one in Ohio, proclaims that it is a constitutional right to clean air and clean water. And it's driving the companies that frack crazy, because city after city is essentially saying you cannot frack here, and we're going to do this at the county level, but particular and through the major cities in Ohio. In fact, in the capital here of Columbus, we're already gathering signatures. We passed it in Youngstown. We passed it in a Republican city, Mansfield, Ohio, with the support of a Republican mayor. People are beginning to understand that you can't, every one of these fracking holes, 3 to 7 million gallons of water, and they're bringing the radioactive contaminated water into Ohio from West Virginia and Pennsylvania. And the governor of this state, John Kasich, who wants to run for president, fired the Ohio EPA director because he noted that there was radium-226 and 228 in the fracking water. So we're in a huge, huge battle to make sure, people aren't being poisoned and radiated in the state of Ohio. And we're going to do this in city after city.
Bob Fitrakis, Ohio Green Party, Gail Farrell-Parker.
Yes, Bob, the Independent Greens of Virginia advocate for more candidates on the ballot and less apathy. In fact, we believe that just by having more people run for office, we can make a change, a positive change in our system and our government. What do you say to that, and what advice do you have to new emerging parties?
Well, just one other point, if I may, Bob, before you start. You had a Bob Hart, I believe it was, running for Congress this year in Ohio, in Youngstown, who is a Mennonite, I believe, and did very well, did he not?
Yeah, he got over 4.5% of the vote. Also, just north of there, Elaine Mateo ended up with 6% of the vote as a state rep. Again, Dennis Lambert, more than 3% along the Ohio River. We're in situations in Toledo, Anita Rios at the top of our ticket actually beats the Republican. So when she ran for city council last time, it was between her and a Democrat.
Bob, am I right, Bob, that the Ohio Green Party has elected a city councilman in Cleveland?
Yeah, Brian Cummings is a Green city councilman in Cleveland, and we also have we had a school board president in Boardman, Ohio, and even here in Columbus, I was elected to the area commission, which is the Board of Zoning and Development. We're urging, which is very, very important in terms of sustainability and the use of renewables. I'm a Near East Area Commissioner, which means I'm on the Columbus City Board of Zoning and Development, right off the downtown in the Near East Side.
Bob, Gail's question now. Gail Farrell's question.
Thank you. Yes, Bob, what advice do you have for emerging political parties? And do you believe that we can make a difference just by getting more folks to run for office?
Well, I believe if you look at American history versus every ideal we hold sacred, the ending of slavery, equality for women, all of those topics, subjects, and those political laws came from third parties. They did not come from the major parties who spend their time, in the corporate center fighting over 5-10% of the vote. All of the ideas that are going to push for a sustainable, relocalized green America, a hemp-based, more natural economy, all of that will come from the Greens and minor parties, whether it's challenging the surveillance state and protecting the Constitution to having a Green New Deal. The major parties are incapable of breaking with the large multinational corporations. And again, think about the most successful third party in history, the Republican Party. That was a third party that was willing to deal with the issue of slavery. And it was formed out of even smaller third parties, the Free Soil Party and the Abolitionist Party. the New Deal of the 1930s. That was the Socialist Party platform of 1908. So historically, new ideas have always come from the People's Party, from the Progressive Bull Moose Party, from the Abolitionist Party. None of the ideas that make society freer, more open and equal have ever really come from the mainstream parties. We're the incubators of the real values of America.
Bob Fitrakis, Ohio Green Party. You're watching Green TV with Colonel Jim Leslie of the Independent Green Party, a candidate in 2015 for House of Delegates. Gail Farrell Parker, Independent Green Party Vice Chair. And, of course, I'm Kerry Campbell. Bob Fitrakis, do you want to announce right here on the Independent Green Party Green TV what you'll be looking at as far as yourself as a candidacy in 2015?
Well, I haven't decided, but I have thought about running in 2016. I've been approached by veterans who, they tore down the Vets Memorial here to hand it over to billionaire developers. So I may be preparing with the support of the vets to run for county commissioner in 2016. And again, we'll be taking on the largest recipients of welfare in the county, those who have gotten $250 million in cash out of the casino money.
That's amazing, Bob Fitrakis, Ohio Green Party, to hear that in Ohio, because of economic interest, they have torn down a memorial to veterans, and you say you'll use that as a motivation. All three of us here are veterans. Colonel Jim Leslie, U.S. Marine Corps, Gail Farrell Parker, retired Air Force officer, and I myself, a veteran. So we see it as, I can say this for myself, and Jim, would you say so yourself, that running for office as an independent Green Party person is, I see it as a civic and patriotic duty.
I just love it. I get so inspired just watching TV and seeing the way the country has been backsliding, going downhill. And I keep thinking, if there's something little that I can do just in my own county, my own neighborhood, to get more people out to vote and to keep America from going in the direction that it has been going the last few years.
Bob, where can we find more information about your books?
Oh yeah, you might want to go to the freepress.org, my website. There's also a store there, so they're all in one place, because they were published by different publishers. So if you want to go to freepress.org, it also contains a variety of writings by Harvey Wasserman and myself and other independent and green authors. So freepress.org.
Thank you, Bob. You also serve on the National Green Shadow Cabinet, a group of Green Party and independents. Describe to us, if you would please, the purpose of the Green Shadow Cabinet and your role in the Green Shadow Cabinet, Bob.
Well, I'm the Federal Elections Commissioner, and I've got a novel approach every time the Federal Elections Commission comes out and doesn't stand up for voters' rights. I stand up for democracy. Part of what we do is write policy, and a lot of it isn't hard. In the European Union, for example, there's an opt-in. The government makes sure everyone's registered to vote. So we're fighting the new Jim Crow right now, and I'm able to go forward and talk about every American being registered to vote who's eligible. So that's, and we got a book coming out called Field of Greens that will be coming out next year. It'll be all of the Green Shadow Cabinet writing our national positions in a book.
Field of Greens, Gail Farrell Parker, Colonel Jim Leslie. Field of Greens, the new book coming out from Bob Fitrakis and members of the Green Shadow Cabinet on various issues, like Bob Fitrakis just described, voter participation and the ability to do the most fundamental duty of us all as citizens of this great country, and that is to vote. Bob Fitrakis, we're coming down to the last couple minutes of Green Party Green TV. Anything in particular that we've left out that you want to get to here in the last couple of minutes?
Well, again, we have called for a state investment bank in Ohio, much like the Nonpartisan League did in North Dakota. You'll hear North Dakota has the best economy in the United States. Part of that is because the people of North Dakota own their own state investment bank, and they invest locally and sustainably on behalf of the people of that state. We've proposed that for Ohio as well. We've also come up with novel ideas, a lot of practical stuff. For example, in Ohio, you can't take a train from the capital, Columbus, to Cleveland or Cincinnati. So we've come up with a radical idea that we ought to have train service similar to 1871, when you could take a train from the major cities in Ohio to the other major cities.
It's incredible. More trains, less traffic, Bob. You hit the nail on the head. Amazing. Rail saves lives. Rail grows jobs. Rail, every dollar invested in rail creates $20 worth of economic growth. Bob Fitrakis of the Ohio Green Party with a common sense, positive Green New Deal solution, more trains and less traffic, rail from Columbus to Cleveland, even Cincinnati, I'm guessing, Bob?
Yeah, the 3C corridor, right from Cincinnati through Columbus to Cleveland.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Gail for Rail, 30 seconds. Any last remarks?
Thank you so very much for being on the show, Bob. We hope to hear more about your success in the future.
Colonel Jim Leslie.
Right, thank you.
Bob, thanks for being with us this evening.
It's
I appreciate the opportunity.
Join us again next time on Independent Green Party's Green TV. Join us for more trains, less traffic, solar jobs, wind jobs, geothermal jobs, rail jobs.